In 1985, the Chinese government made an offer to the greatest mountaineer who has ever lived. His name is Reinhold Messner. This is the man who climbed Everest without bottled oxygen, which every expert on Earth had said would kill him. This is the man who then did it again, alone, in the monsoon season, with no partner, no rope, and no radio. He was the first human being to stand on top of all 14 mountains on this planet taller than 8,000 meters. If mountaineering has a single undisputed god, it is this man. And China offered him the one prize nobody else on Earth had ever been given: a permit, a legal, stamped, government-issued permit to climb Mount Kailash, the last great unclimbed mountain in the world, the summit no human foot has ever touched. He said no. Now, I want you to sit with how strange that is, because Mount Kailash is not a hard mountain. It is 6,638 meters tall. That doesn't even put it in the top 100 peaks on Earth. Messner had climbed things that were 2,000 meters taller and 100 times deadlier, in worse weather, with less equipment, for less glory. On paper, Kailash should have been a warm-up, a long weekend, a footnote in a career built out of impossible things. He was handed the last unclimbed mountain in the world, and he turned around and walked away. And when people asked him why, he didn't talk about avalanches. He didn't talk about ice, or altitude, or route conditions, or weather windows. He said something that nobody in the mountaineering press knew what to do with. He said, "If we conquer this mountain, then we conquer something in people's souls." That is not a climber talking. That is somebody repeating something he was told. Because here's what most people don't know about that decision. Before Messner said no, he had spent time in the shadow of that mountain among the people who have lived beside it for 1,000 years. The monks. And what they told him about Mount Kailash was so completely different from everything the outside world believed about that mountain that he did the one thing no mountaineer ever does. He agreed with them. Now, you have probably heard the other version of this story. The famous version. The version where 4 Siberian climbers went up Kailash and came back down aged. Where their hair and fingernails had grown weeks in the space of hours. Where every single one of them was dead within a year, young men. All of them who died of old age. You've heard that the mountain has a force field, that compasses spin, that planes can't fly over it, that it sits exactly 6,666 kilometers from Stonehenge and from both poles. That it isn't a mountain at all, but a pyramid, built by something that was not human. Every one of those claims has been repeated for decades. I've told some of them myself. And what I'm going to show you today is where every single one of them actually came from. Because they didn't come from Tibet. They didn't come from the monks. They didn't come from anyone who has ever lived within 1,000 miles of that mountain. They came from one man, in one book, in the 1990s. And the monks have been standing next to that mountain the entire time, saying something completely different in plain language to anyone who bothered to ask. For weeks I went through it all. The Russian expedition papers, the 1,926 British survey accounts, the Tibetan pilgrimage texts, the permit records, the interviews, and I found something I genuinely did not expect. The mystery of Mount Kailash has an answer. It has had an answer the whole time. It is documented, it is on the record, and it explains why nobody climbs that mountain far better than aliens ever did. The reason we never found it is that we spent 40 years asking a question the monks consider insane. This is the secret of Mount Kailash, and it is not what we thought. To understand why the answer is so strange, you first have to understand how deep the mystery goes. So let's build the case exactly the way the internet built it, piece by piece, and I want you to notice how good it looks. Mount Kailash sits in the far southwest corner of Tibet, in the Nagari region, near the point where China, India, and Nepal all reach for each other. It is one of the most remote inhabited places on the planet. And for reasons that are going to take this entire video to unpack, this single mountain has captivated the human race for longer than most countries have existed. Start with a number, 4. 4 separate religions claim Mount Kailash as sacred ground. Hinduism, where it is the home of Lord Shiva. Buddhism, where it is the abode of Demchok. Jainism, where their first Tirthankara achieved liberation on it. And Bon, the religion that was in Tibet before Buddhism arrived. The older one, the one most people have never heard of. Four faiths, born centuries and mountain ranges apart, all pointing at the same rock. That alone should stop you. But hold that thought, because we're coming back to it. And when we do, it's going to matter more than anything else in this video. Now, four again. Four great rivers rise out of the Kailash region, and each one runs toward a different cardinal point. The Indus, running north. The Sutlej, running west. The Brahmaputra, running east. The Karnali, which feeds the Ganges, running south. These four rivers water almost 2 billion people. Every civilization downstream of that mountain, everyone drinks from it, which is why geographers have a nickname for Kailash that predates every conspiracy theory about it, the navel of the world. But even that isn't where things start to get strange. Look at the thing. Just look at it. Mount Kailash does not look like a mountain. Mountains are messy. Mountains are collapsed, eroded, asymmetric piles of failure. Kailash has four faces, and they align almost perfectly to the four cardinal directions. Its sides are so steep and so regular that from certain angles it reads less like geology and more like architecture, like something that was placed there. Now, to be fair, Kailash isn't the only pyramid-shaped peak on Earth. There's Pyramid Mountain in Alberta, Alpamayo in Peru, Marata Peak in Bulgaria. But look at those and then look at Kailash again, and the difference jumps out. The others have the scars you'd expect. Kailash doesn't. Kailash looks finished. And the four faces aren't just aligned. According to the traditions, they're colored. The north face is gold, the south is lapis lazuli, the east is crystal, the west is ruby. Speaking of the faces, here's one that genuinely bothers geologists. The north face of Mount Kailash carries far less snow than the south face. Now that sounds like nothing until you remember where you are. In the northern hemisphere, the south side of a mountain gets more sunlight. More sunlight means more melting, which means the north face, the shaded one, the cold one, should be the one buried in ice. On Kailash, it's backwards. The face that bakes in the sun keeps its glaciers all year round. The face that sits in shadow stays bare. As if that isn't strange enough, there's the compass problem. Ordinarily, finding north is trivial. The Earth's magnetic field behaves like a bar magnet, and a needle does what a needle does. People who have tried to use a compass at Kailash report that the needle simply refuses. It spins, it wanders, it never settles. And then there's the life. Or rather, there isn't any. Mountains grow things. Push a seed into a crack at altitude and something will eventually claw its way out. On Kailash, nothing. Not a tree, not a shrub, not a blade of anything. It is completely, conspicuously barren. Now here's where it goes from weird to, quote, too coincidental to be random. On the south face of Mount Kailash, there is a swastika. Not a painted one, a shadow. When the sun drops on the south side, the vertical ice cracks and the horizontal bands of rock strata cross each other, and what falls across the mountain is the unmistakable shape of a left-facing swastika. Which happens to be, and I promise this is not a coincidence, I'm manufacturing an auspicious symbol in all four of the religions that call this mountain holy. Amazed? It gets worse. Because the swastika isn't the only symbol on that mountain. From satellite imagery, people have identified the face of Shiva himself in the rock. And the snow packed into the folds near the summit forms the shape of Om, the single most sacred syllable in Hinduism. The dot is in the right place. The dot is in the right place. Not weird enough for you? Then let's talk numbers, because this is the one that broke the internet. Mount Kailash is said to sit exactly 6,666 kilometers from Stonehenge, and 6,666 kilometers from the North Pole, and 6,666 kilometers from the South Pole. Three of the most significant points on the planet, all at the same impossible distance, all from the same rock. Then there are the lakes. Two of them, sitting at the foot of the mountain, and they used to be one body of water before tectonics tore them apart. Today they behave like they hate each other. Lake Mansarovar is round like the sun, fresh, full of life, the highest freshwater lake on Earth, and at that altitude it should freeze solid, and it never does, no matter the season. Then, a few kilometers away, Rakshastal, the demon lake, shaped like a crescent moon, salt-heavy, dead, turbulent. Nothing lives in it. And locals say, it does something worse, it vanishes. The water drains away, leaves cracked ground behind, and then comes back at full volume like it never left. the Ghost Lake. Two lakes, same rain, same rock, same sun, opposite in every measurable way. But none of it, not the swastika, not the numbers, not the Ghost Lake, is as terrifying as what has happened to the people who tried to climb this thing. Because they don't fail the way climbers normally fail. Colonel Wilson, who tried for the summit, reported that the moment he found a clear route up, heavy snow began to fall out of nowhere and made the ascent impossible. Others described finding themselves suddenly walking back down the way they came, as though the mountain had quietly rotated underneath them. Others were pushed off by blizzards that appeared out of clear sky. And some just felt something, a wave of wrongness, a certainty that they should not be there. The Russian climber Sergei Chistyakov put it like this: "When we approached the foot of the mountain, my heart was pounding. I was in front of the sacred mountain, which has never been beaten. I felt extremely emaciated, and suddenly I was captivated by the thought that I do not belong on this mountain, that I must necessarily come back. As soon as we started the descent, I felt liberated." And it isn't just people. Pilots avoid it. There's a persistent, widely repeated claim that no aircraft can pass over Mount Kailash, that something up there simply will not allow it. Put it all together, and you have a mountain that breaks light, breaks magnetism, breaks weather, breaks biology, breaks aviation, and breaks the human beings who approach it. So what explains it? For the last 30 years, there have been two answers. And I need you to understand both of them in full before I can show you what's actually wrong with them, because the thing that's wrong with them is not what you're expecting. The first theory is the one you already know. Mount Kailash isn't a mountain. It's a structure. And whoever built it wasn't from here. The argument goes like this. Hindu scripture is not vague about its gods the way a lot of religions are vague about theirs. The Hindu gods have addresses. They have vehicles. They have hardware. The Mahabharata, one of the longest epic texts ever written, is loaded with descriptions that sound absolutely nothing like divine miracle and absolutely everything like engineering. Flying vehicles called vimanas. Weapons that respond to spoken commands. A passage describing a weapon that produces a blinding column of fire, a wind that flattens everything, and survivors whose hair and nails fall out afterward, which is a very specific set of symptoms for a text written thousands of years before anyone had a word for radiation. And the theory says, what if those texts aren't mythology? What if they're a report? What if a technologically advanced people came here, were recorded by the people who watched them, and the records survived as scripture? And then it points at Ellora, because you should know about Ellora. In Maharashtra, India, there is a temple called Kailasa, named for this exact mountain, built as a physical model of it, and it is not built up out of blocks. It was carved down out of a single piece of rock from the top. To make it, somebody removed roughly 400,000 tons of stone. Archaeologists date the construction at around 18 years. Do that arithmetic and you get 60 tons of rock a day, every day, for 18 years, with no margin for error, because you cannot uncarve a mistake in a monolith. And that's before you account for the fact that the walls are covered in intricate sculpture the entire way down. We could not do this today. With diamond saws and lasers and computer modeling, we would not attempt this today. So the theory asks a reasonable sounding question. If the same people who made Ellora also shaped Kailash, and if ancient Sanskrit texts describe devices capable of turning rock to air, what exactly are we looking at? And it isn't just India. The Hopi speak of the Havmusuv's beautiful, golden-skinned beings with flying craft and a silver tube that could kill a man with one shot. 3 mythologies, 3 continents, all describing the same visitors. Even if you're a skeptic, you have to admit that's a strange coincidence. Okay, now I'm going to do something that I don't think anyone in this genre has done properly, and it's the reason this video exists. I'm going to tell you where the aging story came from. Because everything I just told you, the pyramid, the force field, the compass, the rapid aging, all of it has a single point of origin. It is not folklore, it is not Tibetan, it is not old. It has a name and a publication date. In 1999, a Russian scientist named Ernst Moldashev traveled to Tibet with a team and spent time in the Kailash region. Moldashev is a real credentialed man. He is an ophthalmologist, a genuinely accomplished eye surgeon, award-winning, well-published in his own field. And in the Kailash region, he became convinced that he was looking at an artificial complex. He described pyramids. He described what he called stone mirrors. He described hearing sounds from inside the mountain at night. Writing about it, he said, "In the silence of the night, there often were strange rasping sounds in the belly of the mountain. One night, both my colleagues and I distinctly heard the noise of a falling stone that undoubtedly came from the interior." And he went further than that. He said, "It is hard for me to discuss this topic from a scientific point of view, but I can quite positively say that the Kailash complex is directly related to life on Earth. And when we did a schematic map of the City of Gods, consisting of pyramids and stone mirrors, we were very surprised. The scheme was similar to the spatial structure of DNA molecules. A map of the mountain that matches the structure of DNA. A city under the mountain. Shambhala. A reservoir of the human gene pool, holding the genes of vanished civilizations. Here's the part people leave out. Moldashev also wrote about time behaving badly near those stone mirrors. He wrote that people in that zone experience sudden, drastic aging. And in the version of the story that has circulated ever since, 4 Siberian climbers went up, aged decades in hours, and were dead within a year. I want to tell you the number of independent, verifiable records of that expedition that exist outside of Moldashev's own writing and the things downstream of it. 0. No names, no expedition permits, no Soviet or Russian Alpine Club registration, no death certificates, no families, no graves. 4 young men supposedly died of catastrophic accelerated aging, the single most medically extraordinary event in recorded human history, and not one autopsy exists. Not one hospital record. Not one journalist ever found a mother. The most famous fact about Mount Kailash is a story from one man's book, and it has been repeated so many thousands of times that it has calcified into something that feels like history. And this matters enormously, because Moldashev is not the villain here. Moldashev went to that mountain, and he felt something. Something real happened to him there. He came back and reached for the only vocabulary he had: pyramids, aliens, gene pools, DNA, and he built an explanation out of it. He was a foreigner, standing at the foot of a mountain, trying to explain a feeling, which is precisely the thing the monks have been trying to explain for 1,000 years. And they were standing right there. So let's do the thing nobody did. Let's ask them. Ask a monk at Kailash why the mountain has never been climbed, and you will not get a story about a force field. You will not get aliens. You will get a look. And then, usually, a question back. Why would anyone climb it? And that question is not rhetorical, and it's not evasion. That question is the whole thing. Because for the 4 religions that hold this mountain sacred, there is no tradition of summiting Mount Kailash. For the same reason, there's no tradition of standing on the altar. It isn't forbidden the way a law forbids something. It's absent the way an idea can just be absent. Nobody climbs it because climbing it isn't a thing that occurs to anyone. What they do instead is walk around it. It's called the Kora, 52 kilometers, on foot, all the way around the base of the mountain, over the Drol Mala Pass at 5,600 meters, where the air holds about half the oxygen it does at sea level. Buddhists and Hindus walk it clockwise. Bon practitioners walk it counterclockwise, and that detail is going to come back in about 90 seconds, so hold on to it. Pilgrims have been doing this for 1,000 years. Some do it in a single day, walking 18 hours through thin air. Some do it in prostrations, and this is the part that should genuinely stop you. A body-length prostration Kora means you stand, you drop, you lie flat on the ground, you mark where your fingertips reached, you stand up on that mark, and you do it again. 52 kilometers of that. It takes weeks. People do it in winter. People have died doing it, and the tradition holds that dying on the Kora is a good death. And the doctrine attached to it is extremely specific. 1 lap around Mount Kailash erases the sins of 1 lifetime. 108 laps, and 108 is the sacred number across all of it, and you break the cycle entirely. No more rebirth. Liberation, the end of the entire wheel. Now stay with me, because here is where 1,000 years of this stops being religious decoration and starts being an answer. In the Buddhist and Hindu and Jain and Bon cosmologies, this mountain is Mount Meru, and Meru is not a landform. Meru is the axis of the universe, the pillar the entire cosmos is organized around. Every world, every heaven, every hell, arranged in concentric rings around one center. When those four rivers run out toward the four directions, that's not a curiosity of hydrology. In the cosmology, that is the map. The mountain is the middle of everything, and reality is laid out around it in rings, which means Mount Kailash, in the eyes of every tradition that holds it sacred, is a mandala. And there is exactly one way you engage with a mandala. You go around it. You circle the center. You do not step on the center. The center is the point the whole structure is organized by, and putting your boots on it is not sacrilege in the sense of being rude, it is sacrilege in the sense of being incoherent. It's a category error. It's like asking what's north of the North Pole. So when Western climbers arrived and asked, why has nobody climbed it? The monks heard something genuinely deranged. They heard, why has nobody stood on the middle of the universe? And now go back and look at every single mystery from chapter 1 through that lens. The four faces, the four rivers, the four religions, the four cardinal directions. That's not numerology. That's a mandala, a four-gated structure with a center described exactly the way mandalas have been described for a millennium. We looked at a 1,000-year-old cosmological diagram and said, weird, it keeps doing fours. The clockwise and counterclockwise thing, Bon going one way, Buddhist the other, that's not superstition. That's two traditions that both understood the mountain as a center and disagreed about the direction of the circuit. You do not argue about which way to walk around something unless you both already agree that walking around it is the point. And the aging. Here's what I think happened. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Moldashev went to Kailash and was told, by people who have believed it for 1,000 years, that time works differently at that mountain, that a single lap around it burns off a lifetime, that the Kora compresses karma, that you can, in one day of walking, discharge what would otherwise take you an entire life to work through. Now imagine you're a Russian eye surgeon in 1999, standing at 5,000 meters, being told through a translator that this mountain ages a lifetime out of you in a single day. You'd write down exactly what Moldashev wrote down. The monks were describing a metaphysical claim about karma and rebirth. We received it as a physics claim about fingernails. We didn't discover the secret of Mount Kailash. We mistranslated it, and then we spent 30 years investigating our own mistranslation. Which is the point where I have to be honest with you about the rest of the list. Because once you stop looking for a force field, the mysteries start falling over pretty fast. The pyramid shape. Geologists have a name for this. It's called a glacial horn, and it is the single most well-understood mountain shape on Earth. When multiple glaciers grind into the same peak from different sides over hundreds of thousands of years, they carve back the slopes and leave a sharp, steep, symmetrical pyramid standing in the middle. It's how the Matterhorn got made. It's how Alpamayo got made. Kailash almost certainly got its shape during the ice ages of the Quaternary period, around 2.6 million years ago. The reason it looks cleaner than the others isn't design. It's that it stands alone, exposed on the Tibetan plateau, with no neighboring peaks to break up the sightline. The snow anomaly, the north face, having less snow than the south. This one has a beautifully boring answer that always gets left out. The southern slope faces the Indian Ocean. That slope catches the summer monsoon coming up off the water. Moist air rises against the south face and dumps precipitation on it all year. The north face sits in the rain shadow, in dry air. It's not sunlight that's the dominant variable at that altitude, it's where the water comes from. The plains. Aircraft do avoid Tibetan airspace, that part is completely true. The reason has nothing to do with Kailash. Cabins are pressurized, and if a plane loses pressure at cruising altitude, the oxygen masks only carry about 15 to 20 minutes of air. The pilot's only move is to descend to around 3,000 meters, where people can breathe on their own. Now look at where you are. Tibet averages over 4,000 meters and is studded with the highest mountains on the planet. There is nowhere to descend to. Airlines don't avoid Kailash. They avoid the entire roof of the world, and they avoid it for the most mundane reason imaginable: math about oxygen. The 6,666 kilometers. I'm sorry. Kailash to Stonehenge is roughly 6,800 kilometers. Kailash to the North Pole is roughly 6,000. To the South Pole, around 14,000. And the claim you'll see everywhere, that Kailash is 13,332 kilometers from base to peak, that's 6,666, doubled, describes a mountain more than twice as tall as the Earth's radius. Somebody made the numbers up and everyone repeated them, because 6,666 feels like it means something. The Black Rock. Kailash isn't black. It's a conglomerate and sandstone formation, and in most light it reads distinctly reddish-brown. The Barren Slopes. It's a rock face above 5,500 meters on the Tibetan Plateau. Almost nothing at that altitude grows on bare stone. That's not an absence of life. That's just altitude. The Compass. Ferrous rock and iron-bearing mineral deposits cause local magnetic deviation on mountains all over the planet. It's a known, mapped, boring phenomenon. I know. I've just taken a lot of things away from you. And I want to be clear about what's left, because this is the part that surprised me most. After you strip all of it out, every fabricated number, every misattributed legend, every unsourced story, Mount Kailash is still the only major peak on Earth that no human has ever stood on top of. That fact survives. All of it survives. So if it isn't a force field, and it isn't aliens, and it isn't time dilation, what is actually stopping us? That's the secret, and the answer is the most human thing in this entire story. Nothing is stopping us. That's it. That's the answer. There is no barrier around Mount Kailash. There is no field, no guardian, no ancient technology, no punishment for the sinful. A competent alpine team with modern gear could stand on that summit in a matter of days. It is not a hard mountain. It has never been a hard mountain. The route is visible from the ground. Mount Kailash is unclimbed because we decided not to climb it. That's the whole thing, and I want to show you the exact moments the decision got made, because they're on the record and they're astonishing. Go back to 1936. An Austrian named Herbert Tichy is in the Kailash region, and he asks a local craftsman whether the mountain could ever be climbed. And the man gives him an answer that has followed that mountain around for 90 years. Only a man entirely free of sin could climb Kailash. And he wouldn't have to actually scale the sheer walls of ice to do it, he'd just turn himself into a bird and fly to the summit. Read that again, because that is not a warning. That is not, the mountain will stop you. That's a joke, and it's a devastating one. He's saying, the question you're asking me is so far outside the point that a man capable of standing up there wouldn't need to walk. The prerequisite isn't strength. It's not equipment. It's not permission. And anyone who has it doesn't want the summit anyway. Every Westerner who has stood in front of that mountain and asked the wrong question has been told a version of that, patiently, for a century. And in 1985, someone finally heard it. Reinhold Messner had the permit in his hand. The last unclimbed mountain on Earth, offered to the one man who had already collected every other prize the sport had, and he handed it back. If we conquer this mountain, then we conquer something in people's souls. That's not mysticism. Look at what he's actually saying. He's saying the mountain isn't the thing. The mountain is a rock. He knew that better than anyone alive. What's up there is 1,000 years of meaning that a couple of billion people built and maintained and walked around and prostrated toward and died on the slopes of. And you can't climb that. You can only break it. There is nothing on that summit to get. There is only something to end. The greatest mountaineer in history looked at the last unclimbed peak on the planet and understood that summiting it would not be an achievement. It would just be vandalism with rope. And then it almost happened anyway. In 2001, China granted a Spanish team permission to climb Mount Kailash. It was real. It was approved. And when the news got out, the outcry was immediate and it was global, and the loudest voice in it was Messner, who told them, in effect, if you want a challenge, go climb something harder. There are hundreds of mountains. There's one of these. The permission was withdrawn. The Spanish team went home. The summit is still empty. That is the secret of Mount Kailash. Not a force field. A promise. 1,500 kilometers of empty Tibetan plateau, 4 religions, 1,000 years of pilgrims walking in circles, a craftsman's joke in 1936, one climber's refusal in 1985, and a global argument in 2001, and the last unclimbed mountain on Earth is held up by nothing but our agreement not to touch it, which makes it the most fragile mountain in the world, and also, I'd argue, the most impressive thing our species has ever not done. Because here's what I keep coming back to. We went looking for a wall around that mountain. We invented aliens and pyramids and force fields and dead Siberians because we could not accept the possibility that a thing might go unconquered for any reason other than being unconquerable. We could not imagine restraint, so we built a force field out of thin air rather than admit that the barrier was us and that we put it there on purpose. The monks never had a mystery. They had a practice. Every year, thousands of people walk 52 kilometers around the base of that mountain in half the oxygen you're breathing right now, and not one of them looks up at the summit and thinks I could take that. They walk around the center. That's it. That's what it's for. We spent 40 years asking why the mountain won't let us climb it. The monks were never talking about the mountain. They were talking about whether we'd be the kind of people who could stand next to something sacred and leave it alone. And so far for now, the answer is yes. The summit of Mount Kailash is still empty. Not because we can't, because we won't.